Part 117. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1163. Other ministers also felt that the ministers who made this proposal were out of their minds. Now the annual maritime trade tariff accounts for 1/5 of the tax revenue, which is comparable to the salt tax. If the sea is banned again, how much money will be thrown away? Everyone looked at the courtier with disdain. Chi Heiran also said seriously, whether it is foreigners, Xixia people, Yuan people, or Korean people, Chen dynasty people should be wary, but try to be friendly and mutual benefit. How can you cut off contact and give up vested interests because of potential danger? Everyone nodded one after another. Chi Heiran heaved a sigh of relief and finally diverted everyone's attention. The officials didn't feel that something was wrong until they left the imperial study room. They looked at each other and said, "Aren't we here to ask about the poisoning?" Another courtier gritted his teeth and said, "Before I had a good talk with Prince Rong about the poisoning incident, he was fooled out of me. However, it is impossible for everyone to turn around and go back to Chi Heiran to settle accounts. The emperor is still watching. However, this matter has to be kept secret, at least not to let the envoys of England know about it, otherwise let them be on guard, who knows what they will do next time." Everyone almost vomited blood when they thought of this. They could only eat this dark loss. However, most people still looked at Master Xia with hatred, and said sarcastically, "Master Xia is the left servant of the Ministry of Punishment, and he believed the words of the three yellow-mouthed children without asking a few questions. It seems that Master Xia is very fond of Ling grandson, trust me. It's a pity that he was tricked by his grandson." Master Xia was vomiting blood in his heart, but he said calmly on his face, it's easy to say, because Xiaofu is my grandson, I didn't think too much about it. I didn't expect this child to be so powerful at such a young age. To be able to convince you by going to the door of your lords is to have the wisdom of a counselor." The ministers who were deceived by Xiaofu to take the box from their hands immediately lay down their guns. It's true that the three children's expressions were too serious, their faces were sweating with anxiety, and they used Prince Rong and Princess Wang as an excuse, so they really believed it at the first time. However, when did they trust people so easily? Or three kids with an average age of less than 4. Everyone blushed and could only swallow this loss secretly. At this time, a group of children are competing to see who gets the most boxes. Little Bear and Tiger Head team, Xiaoan and Little Lion team, Xiaofu led a team of twins, and in the end it was Xiaofu's team with the youngest average age that won. Little Xiang sighed, "No wonder it's no use trying to refute the rumors. You have to go to the palace to borrow Uncle Wang's ability. It turns out that the three of you are making trouble." Beizu was not convinced, and shouted, "We didn't play tricks, Big Brother is not ashamed, he can't afford to lose." Little Leopard and Xiaofu also looked at him with wide eyes. Xiao Xiang and Xiaoan feel that they have a long way to go. As elder brothers, how can they wait until these bear children grow up? The two of them completely forgot that they were also a member of the Bear Boy, and even now they are still classified as the Bear Boy by the adults. With so many cigars recovered, Chi Heiran naturally couldn't study them by himself, so he gave half of them to the Thai hospital, and asked them to study if there was anything wrong with them. The rest will be handed over to Dr. Wang to study in the mansion. When Mu Yangling found out, she didn't know what to say. She really wanted to tell Chi Heiran that the cigars were really okay, but seeing that he was very enthusiastic, she finally swallowed the words. Forget it, let them study it, who made her show her behavior before, but now she can't explain it? The envoys of Western countries have signed partial tax-free agreements with Daki. They want to return to their country to tell the good news to their emperors, so they leave one after another. For a while, only the envoys from Dongying are left in the station. But because of the pirates on the southeast coast, the Daki people were a little unfriendly to them. They stayed for half a month and found no progress at all, so they could only leave with regret. At this time, the spring is warm and the flowers are blooming, and the earth is recovering. Chihayron packs the little bear and sends it to the military camp for training. But within a month he was returned. In just 20 days, the little bear lost a lot of weight. Mu Yangling was so distressed that he wiped him up and down to make sure that he was not injured, so he had time to ask him, "Why are you so tired?" Was returned. "You have fought in the battlefield, how could you be returned?" Little bear scratched his head, puzzled and said, "I don't know, I get along with them quite well." Mu Yangling looked at his son in disbelief, and stared into his eyes for a long time before he was sure that he was not lying. "Then why were you sent back?" At this time, in the front hall of the palace, Xiaoxiang's immediate boss, General Wei Kang of the third rank, knelt on the ground and hugged Chihayron's leg and begged, "My lord, please take the son away, and he will stay in the barracks. If you don't kill us, the barracks will have to mutiny." Chihayron glared angrily, "Speak clearly, what happened to your son?" General Wei Kang wailed, "My son is brave and good at fighting, he memorized a lot in battle, he trained hard, and he was able to share will and woe with the soldiers." "Then why are you dissatisfied?" Chihayron was angrily. "But, Shizi is so kind. He takes the soldiers to train every day at 5 o'clock in the morning. Except for an hour's break at noon, he spends the rest of the time training, and he also requires the whole battalion to train every 5 o'clock practice once every day, once every month, once every 3 months, almost round-the-clock training without any pause." Wei Shen looked at Chihayron with tears in his eyes, and cried, "It's only 25 days that group of bastards ate up all the military rations for 3 months, and at this rate, if the household department doesn't kill us, the soldiers will starve, and it won't be much better if they don't mutiny." Wei Shenjiang sniffed, looked at Chihayron cautiously and said, "My lord, why don't you put the son in the imperial army? There is a practice every 2 days, which is different from our 5-day practice. It should be able to satisfy the prince." "Lord." Chihayron looked at Wei Kang's face with tears and snot running down his face, waved him away, "Okay, you can go back." When General Wei saw the prince sighing, he knew that he did not blame them, so he breathed a sigh of relief, and it was not in vain for him to risk his face and cry in front of the prince. Chihayron returned to the backyard full of melancholy, and saw his son stuffing all the food on the table into his mouth like the wind was sweeping the fallen leaves. In less than a quarter of an hour, he emptied the food on the table. Sitting on the side, Mu Yangling opened his mouth wide, and asked distressedly, "How long has it been since you were full?" Little Xiong buried his head in picking up the leftovers on the plate and ate them, saying, "It's been 20 days, mother, you don't know that the food in the military camp doesn't care about being full, and I wake up hungry every night." Chihayron felt distressed when he heard that. He stood at the door thinking for a while, and finally went in and touched his son's head and said, "Forget it, we won't go to the military camp." Little Bear's eyes widened, and he almost jumped up. "How can that be? Then don't I want to give up halfway? The reborn wife is farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1164. The little bear said righteously, "Daddy, I am not afraid of suffering. You can't stop me from practicing because I have suffered. I will be spoiled by you." Chihayron's hands were itchy, and he couldn't help beating him and said, "I dote on you. I don't dote on you. To tell you the truth, the reason why you are not allowed to go to the military camp for training is because there is not enough food. Do you think that training soldiers is like fighting a war? Do you practice every day? Do you know how much food you have to eat?" "But Dad, that's how you trained soldiers before." Little Bear was full of doubts. "Fart, when did you train your soldiers like this?" Daki's army practiced diligently. Basically, they could practice every 7 days, better every 5 days, and those like the Imperial Guards practiced every 2 days. The intensity of the training is just like what Xiao Xiang is practicing now. He has been training non-stop since the beginning of the day, because he exercises a lot and eats a lot among other things. The 3 meals a day must be dry. When they are not practicing, soldiers have to learn how to stand in formation, and the instructors in the army will teach them basic martial arts. Basically, they practice for an hour a day, afternoon. Because in normal training, apart from having a dry meal at noon, I eat porridge or ration steamed buns in the morning and evening. This kind of treatment is much better than the previous dynasty. Because the soldiers in the previous dynasty were stocked without war, and 3 meals a day were sparse, and only in wartime would they practice every 5 days. However, General Yuan and Qi Ziyuan trained so hard in the past, and the military rations they spent had to be raised by themselves. But now the military rations of the Daki army are all paid by the military households, and those who are not enough are reported to the household department, and Xiao Xiang has only been in the army for 25 days, and he trains the most intensively every day. He himself is in charge of a battalion, but he is pulling comparing with other camps. The whole camp suffers from hard training every day. Everyone puts in more effort, so naturally they have to eat more. And looking at the appearance of the little bear, it is obvious that he has not eaten enough, otherwise it would not be possible to lose weight like this in 20 days. The food in the army is declining 3 times faster if they are not full. What if they are full? A group of stingy people in the household department, it's no wonder that they can get food from them. How will the gap in military food be filled? Qi Heiran broke up all kinds of strengths and told his son, and finally said, I thought about it carefully. The first thing you want to practice now is not military literacy. You have learned that since you were 5 years old, and now you are far superior to others. What you need to practice now is understanding of the world. Obviously you are the one who trained in the army, General Wei Kang is your boss. Why did you not know why he sent you back? Qi Heiran sighed, patted his son's head and said, okay, you can rest at home first, and your mother and I will think about where you are going. Little Xiang was a little sad. After hearing what his father said, he realized that he had failed so much, and he was not even told why he was sent back. Seeing him go out dejectedly, Mu Yangling asked worriedly, will this blow be too big? Qi Heiran waved his hands indifferently and said, if he can't even stand this, how can he fight in the future? Stay at home as soon as possible to be his heir, so as not to go out and lose his life. The military literacy of the people on the battlefield is the second most important, and the good psychological quality is the most important. Mu Yangling also knows this, but Xiao Xiang is her son, and she still can't help worrying. Qi Heiran took her hand and walked back, saying, he will have to go through a lot of blows in the future. There are still 4 children under here, you worry about each one. How can we have so much energy? He'll be fine by himself. What are you going to do? This kid has been on the battlefield, and if he is sent to the academy or the study, he will definitely not be able to sit still. He can't be sent to the 6th department, right? Qi Heiran shook his head, although I want him to learn some ways of the world, I don't want to wear down his will. Young man, why bother to go to Lu Buletin and listen to those endless gossips? Although the 6 parts can train people and smooth their edges and corners, it also wears down people's will, which is not what Qi Heiran wants to see. Brother Huang is not willing to let Wen Chen go to the 6th department, because he is afraid that the vigor in him will be worn away, and he will be sent when they are older. Qi Heiran pondered, Wen Chen is going to the north to practice, and we're leaving in a few days, and I want Bear to go with him. Mu Yangling whispered, these two are tied together, what if something happens to you? Qi Heiran sighed quietly, they won't cause trouble if they are separated. Let's put them together. Xiao Bao is steady, and our son has a high force value, so we are really going to cause trouble. With Xiao Bao here, they should be able to take advantage of it. With the cubs here, their escape shouldn't be a problem. Mu Yangling. Chi Heiran made up his mind and went to the palace to find the emperor. In order to increase his persuasion rate, Chi Heiran brought the frustrated little bear with him. Today Chi Xiu took a long break to take a bath. After going to court in the morning, he took care of the government affairs all morning, and took half the afternoon leisurely to look at the flowers in the imperial garden. The queen and several children were accompanying him, and the other concubines in the palace who had just received the news had just dressed up and pretended to be casually walking this way, and saw the emperor and the queen standing under the pavilion admiring the flowers from a distance. Several young concubines couldn't help showing gentle smiles, and just about to step forward, Chi Heiran arrived with his dark and thin son. Chi Xiuyuan looked at Little Bear in surprise and asked, "What's wrong with Little Bear?" The concubines hesitated. Although Prince Rong is the emperor's younger brother, he is still an outsider to the palace, and the queen is his serious sister-in-law. It is nothing to meet him, but these little concubines want to avoid him as much as possible. It's so easy to have a chance to meet the emperor and just be taken away. Several people were very unwilling and almost tore the veil in their hands. You must know that the emperor is diligent and rarely comes to the imperial garden. Even if he comes, he mostly accompany the empress or a few princes. They have never heard of the emperor visiting the imperial garden with concubines other than the empress for many years. This is a rare opportunity. Li Jinghua also saw the group of concubines. Seeing that the two brothers were going to the pavilion to discuss business, she wanted to go and take those concubines away. Chi Xiuyuan noticed her movements, waved his hand indifferently and said, "Let Wen Kui inform them and let them play elsewhere." Li Jinghua paused, agreed, and called Wen Kui to let her go. Eunuch Wang glanced at the emperor, followed Wen Kui and retreated respectfully, and the two of them went to pass the decree together, so that the concubines knew that it was not the queen who drove them away, but the emperor. Chi Xiuyuan looked at the little bear carefully, then turned his head and asked Chi Heiran, "Aren't you sent to the military camp for training? How come you are so thin?" Li Jinghua was also very distressed, and sat on the side holding Xiao Xiong's hand, and gave him the snacks on the table. "Is it because the food in the military camp is not good, or is someone bullying you?" Chi Xiuyuan immediately sat up straight, and said seriously, "Little Xiong, whoever bullied you, tell Uncle Huang." Little Bear shook his head in frustration, "No one bullies me, I'm the one who is stupid." Chi Heiran slapped him on the head, and said, "You really think you are stupid when you say you are stupid? You just don't understand the world, and you haven't communicated well with the soldiers in the army. You just have to learn." Chi Xiu stared at his younger brother, and pulled his nephew to his side. "Don't beat him on the head all the time, I think he's stupid because you beat him. How clever was he before?" Little Bear also looked at his father resentfully. Chi Heiran almost jumped. Although he patted his son's head, what's the difference between the strength he used and the stroking? This can make people stupid. How weak his son is. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1165. Seeing that the two brothers were about to quarrel again, Li Jinghua quickly interjected, "Wen Chen's luggage has been packed, and Wen Jin has to speed up preparations if he is going to follow. I don't have any luggage, just pack 2 sets of clothes and take them with me." Little Xiong looked at Uncle Huang anxiously. Chi Heiran also looked at his elder brother eagerly. Stared at by 2 pairs of big similar eyes, Chi Xiuyuan couldn't refuse at all. He glanced at his younger brother, nodded, and said to Little Bear, "You go to Xiaobao, I'll talk to your father." Chi Xiuyuan had already arranged guards for his son, and now that there are more bears, the guards will naturally also increase. Chi Xiuyuan took his younger brother to the imperial study. The young concubines in the distance could only bite their handkerchiefs and watch the emperor go away. Tears filled their hearts. Would it be easy for them to meet the emperor in the imperial garden? In the end, he was intercepted before approaching the person. Is there any justice in this world? Little Treasure was reading a book, when he saw Little Bear appearing. The book in his hand almost fell to the ground. Why are you so thin? Little Xiong waved his hand to make the servants in the room retreat, and sat down opposite him, sighing, don't mention it, the training in the barracks is intense and you don't have enough to eat, so you'll lose weight all at once. But you used to go to war with your fourth uncle and aunt, didn't you also suffer from hunger? I didn't see you so thin back then. That's different. When fighting, it is only when the two sides fight with each other that it takes a lot of strength. When he travels, he usually rides on a horse. Even if he is a soldier, it is not difficult to travel with his strength and kung fu. He grew up so fast, unlike military training, which was intense and never had enough to eat, so he was naturally skinny. The little bear told him the difference, and then sighed, when I went to my father's military camp, he was training soldiers. I thought that's how the military camps lived, but my father made me go to the military camp for training on purpose. Not enough, there is not enough food, everyone has no oil and water in their stomachs, so it is impossible to practice every day, like the camp where I am, it is very good to be able to practice every 5 days. Little Treasure sighed, I thought that Daki had started to make the country rich and the people safe, but now it seems that it is still very poor, unless one day the country can let all the troops strengthen their training if they want to, and eat as much dry food as they want. It's a rich country and a strong people. Little Bear nodded, stretched out his claws and grabbed a piece of dim sum on his table, stuffed it into his mouth, and finished a plate of dim sum in a few strokes. Xiaobao looked at it with pity, pushed the other snacks in front of him, and asked, how about I send someone to the imperial dining room to get you something to eat? Little Bear shook his head, I was full at home just now, and I'm not hungry now, but I want to eat when I see something to eat. The little bear lowered his voice and said, I'll tell you secretly, don't tell my parents, I eat a lot, and when I was in the barracks, I was a soldier and I could grab food with my hands and feet, but now I'm a captain, I'm not good at all. I'm in a hurry to eat the food I can afford, so I can only eat 2 bowls of rice every day. That was the food intake of an adult soldier in the barracks, and 2 full bowls of rice were enough. But Little Treasure knows that the little bear eats a lot. When he was 5 or 6 years old, he ate more than an adult. Now he eats more. 2 bowls of rice are enough for him to be at the bottom. Xiaobao looked at him sympathetically, even if you give money to the kitchen, you shouldn't starve yourself. This precedent is not easy to control if the army is set, Little Bear said distressedly, so I thought, it's best to be a general as soon as I enter the camp, so that I don't have to eat with the soldiers. When the time comes, I will ask my family to send me a bucket of rice, I can eat as much as I want. Little Bear almost drooled when he said this. Xiaobao slapped the table and said ambitiously, don't worry, even if you are a soldier, I can make you full in the army. We can eat as much as we want, and I will eat it together. Soldiers are like that. Little Bear nodded seriously, so I'm going to write to my uncle to ask him to study and see if he can produce more productive seeds. Little Treasure rolled his eyes and said, aren't we going to the Northland for training? We can go there and have a look. He has entered the court as an official, so it's not difficult to meet him. At most, he can be transferred to the capital at that time. Little Xiong said, I heard from my cousin that the weather in the north is cold, and the experimental field can only be tested once a year. The south of the Yangtze River is different, the climate is warm and humid, and 2 seasons can be planted a year, and the test speed will be faster. It's not urgent, let's take a look at the place to go first. Xiaobao excitedly found the map. He had obviously been planning this matter, and several lines were drawn on the map. Father gave me half a year, we just need to come back before the Double Ninth Festival, so I think there is nothing wrong with detours. The two heads got together to plan their journey of experience. and Chi Xiaoyuan and Chi Heiran quickly arranged guards for the two children, and picked an auspicious day to send the two children out of the capital. Apart from the two brothers, only Fan Zijian, Li Jinghua and Mu Yangling knew about this matter, and the children kept it a secret, while the courtiers, Qi Xiaoyuan did not announce it, but there were always a few people who could guess it, and Xiaobao and the others went no one should know the exact direction. At the same time, several groups of people pretended to be little bears and they left the capital and headed in various directions. This is the first long-distance experience for Little Treasure and Bear to be independent from adults, and both children are very excited. Xiaobao used to take his younger brother out of Beijing, fearing fear along the way, and had to be wary of someone chasing them, so he was not in the mood to look at the scenery on the road, but now he was going out of Beijing openly, and he was so excited that he wanted to get out of the carriage and run away. Little Xiang is also very excited. Every time he travels far away, he is with his parents. Although he has a high degree of freedom, there are restrictions after all. At this time, the two mountains pressing on his head are gone. He yelled "Ah!" outside. The bodyguard who was standing next to him was so shocked that he almost fell off his horse, and the hidden guard who was hiding in the dark almost drew his sword and showed up. Seeing a prince with his head sticking out of the car window and his hands making a horn and shouting continuously, everyone felt itchy together want to beat someone up. But thinking that this was a bit outrageous, everyone could only look away forcefully and suppress the anger in their hearts. Seeing that the little bear was yelling freely, Xiao Bao pulled the person in to take his place, put his palm on his mouth and yelled too. Looking at the two masters who were so excited, the guards became nervous about this trip. To protect these two masters, can they really return to the capital safely? The hidden guards thought of the great achievements of the little masters from childhood to adulthood, and felt a sense of sadness in their hearts, but they also relaxed a little. It doesn't matter, isn't it just a bear, they are used to it. But only they can see the tears in their hearts. The two left Beijing excitedly and headed west all the way. That's right, they decided to take a detour from Tongchuan Mansion to Baidi, and when they came back, they would go through the Shandong area. In this way, they went all the way from the northwest to the east. They really shouldn't be too happy. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1166. Because both of them had played near the capital, they hurried on the road without stopping for the first 3 days, and they didn't start to slow down until the 4th day. The two children's aliases were Chi Chen and Chi Jin, and they traveled outside under the guise of studying abroad, and no one suspected them along the way. The main reason is that their temperament and staffing are in line with this one. As the prince, Xiaobao is most concerned about the actions of local officials, the living standards of the people and their income and expenditure. So every time he went to a place, he had to stay for 2 days, or stay at a farmer's house to ask about farming plans, or visit the husband in the local academy to ask about various policies of the local county government, or hang out in tea houses to listen to all kinds of gossip. They met all kinds of people along the way, but it went smoothly, at least they didn't encounter any strange things, so the two children regarded this experience as a trip, and the guards around them felt relaxed. Even from time to time, the two little masters howled outside, or suddenly asked to watch the sunrise, watch the sunset and other wonderful requests, and they tolerated it. The guards felt that if it was so easy to accompany the prince to go out to practice, maybe they could win 1 or 2 next year. Although the two young masters sometimes have whimsical ideas, they can enjoy the scenery, eat delicious food, and appreciate various customs when they come out. Is really good. However, this is simply impossible. The group of people rushed too far and missed the inn. The guards had no choice but to run over and let the young masters choose. There is a small village about 10 miles ahead. If we don't go to spend the night, we can camp there. Little Bear rubbed his belly and said, I haven't eaten any vegetables for 2 days. Xiao Bao also said, I haven't bathed for 2 days. That humble job made them speed up and try to get to that small village as soon as possible. At this time, the sun had set and it was another spring day with short days. Even when they arrived at the small village, it was completely dark. The group stopped at the gate of the small village. Xiaobao asked the chief guard to negotiate with the village chief, while they stayed outside and waited. The villagers in the village panicked when they heard the sound of horseshoes. Although the world has been peaceful for the past few years, the memory of the troubled times more than 10 years ago is too deep. Those who are over 20 years old panicked. Fortunately, the sound of horseshoes stopped. Outside the villagers ran away without panic. Not long after the chief guard entered the village, he brought out 2 old men. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang hurriedly got off their horses, and said apologetically, "I'm really sorry for disturbing you so much." Seeing that Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang looked good and looked like teenagers again, the old man breathed a sigh of relief, and hurriedly said with a smile, "We are guests from afar, and we have neglected them. Please come inside, 2 young masters." Perhaps because they knew that the visitors were harmless, the villagers peeked at them from the walls. The village chief gave up his house, and said with a smile, "The distinguished guests will live here first. My place is simple, please forgive me, 2 gentlemen." "Where?" we interrupted. Xiaobao sat down on the stool indifferently, and asked, "I think your village doesn't seem to be big, it should be another big village in Kuavu. Why didn't you come here? See other villages." The village chief smiled and said, "We are really the only small village within a radius of 20 miles. Our Zhuangzi was built when the imperial court recorded the refugees. Other big villages are unwilling to accept so many people like us, and we are not willing to visit them either. The face of others is too much, so they occupied this land to build a house, and the Yamen allocated us Yanjai field to cultivate near here. It has been multiplied for more than 10 years to have this scale. Don't think that our village is small now. In another year, in 10 years, our village will have no less than 50 households." Along the way, Little Treasure also knew that their reproductive ability was strong. Thinking of what his 4th aunt said, he smiled awkwardly. "It's a good thing that the population is thriving." "It's a good thing." The village chief was obviously very proud of this. The head guard knew what the prince wanted, so he quickly turned around and took out a lot of raw meat from the carriage and handed it to the village head, saying, "This is some meat, please help me cook 2 dishes, my son hasn't eaten yet." The village head swallowed, and hurriedly carried the meat away. The guards brought rice and white noodles. The village head sighed, "The rich are different. They bring so many good things with them." The village chief didn't dare to be negligent, and he led people to cook a fire. Meat and rice, and some vegetables from the vegetable garden were enough. The farm didn't have many other things, but the vegetables were enough. A few pots of vegetables were quickly placed on the table, and they were simply stir-fried. If it was in the capital, Xiaobao would not touch his chopsticks, but when he was away from home, everything was kept simple. Xiaobao gave the village head a pair of chopsticks and asked him to sit with him come down for dinner. The 3 said while eating that Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang had a certain understanding of the village, and after eating and drinking, they took a shower and went to bed. Xiaoxiang and Xiaobao share the same bed, because there is Xiaoxiang, although the guards are guarding outside, they also rest with their eyes closed. When the guards heard the noise, they almost fell off the stools. The little bear had already sat up and listened with his round eyes open. He was convinced that it was crying, and then he opened the door and went out. The guard on duty rubbed his eyes and said, "Second young master, it seems to be from a family at the end of the village. It's quite a distance away. Do you want to see it? Maybe it's a quarrel at home. Isn't it good for us to meddle in their family affairs rashly?" Another guard disagreed. Little Xiang's hearing was better than theirs, and with his internal strength, he listened for a while, his face darkened, and said, "It seems that someone has died, go and have a look." The guards were completely awake after a shock, and rushed to check the situation. Xiaobao also got up, and asked confusedly, "What's wrong?" Little Xiang lifted the quilt and covered him up. Shen Sheng said, "It seems that someone died, I don't know what it is." The guard who ran out quickly carried a little girl into the room, and said anxiously, "Master, this little girl is still alive, let Mrs. Zhang, Dr. Zhang take a look." Qi Ziyuan and Qi Heiran gave them the best equipment for their son's trip. Besides the guards, the imperial physician was also prepared. Physician Zhang was selected because he was young, in good health, and had good medical skills. But no matter how healthy Dr. Zhang was, he fell asleep like a dead pig after driving for a few days, and was still a little confused when he was dragged up by the guards. The guard murmured in his ear, "This is the first time you've shone brightly. If it doesn't work, the masters may send you back. Second young master has always been displeased with you." Physician Zhang woke up immediately. Shizi always felt that he was slowing down and always wanted to send him back to the capital. He couldn't let Shizi find a reason. Physician Zhang hurriedly carried the medical kit to save people. The 7 or 8-year-old girl was suffocated with pillows and quilts. If the guards who went there hadn't had strong inner strength, and when they checked the body, they found that the other party had a slight pulse, I'm afraid they would be treated as a dead body. Dealt with. Physician Zhang hurriedly opened her mouth, hit her chest a few times, and gave her a needle. After tossing for a long time, the child coughed a few times and spit out a pile of filth. Physician Zhang hurriedly helped her up and turned her head slightly to the side to vomit better, so as not to block the trachea. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1167. As soon as they rescued the person here, there was a noise outside. Little Xiang frowned, opened the door and went out. A woman with disheveled hair, described as crazy, was trying to rush in. When the guard stopped her, she scratched desperately, my child, give me back my child." A group of people rushed over from behind the woman, shouting viciously, "Give us back the child, what do you outsiders want?" Hearing the shout, Xiaobao rushed out, stopped the little bear, and comforted the little bear with a smile, "Don't worry, everyone, we have no malicious intentions, because we brought a doctor with us." So the little girl was handed over to the doctor for treatment. "You're talking nonsense," a man jumped up and shouted, "Niu Niu is already dead, so how can you save her? Who knows what you are going to do if you snatch the child's body? The child still has a pulse, and he is not dead." The child was in suffocation shock, and he knew there was something hidden in it, so he did not tell them the news that the child was alive, only that the child still had a chance of life. The woman who had lost her mind was stunned and asked, "What you said is true, my child is still alive?" Xiaobao nodded, "Auntie, if you don't believe me, you can go into the house and have a look." The guard immediately took a step back and let the woman rush in. The people behind also wanted to follow in. The guard blocked them as soon as he moved. Xiaobao said gently, "The space in the house is limited, and the child is still being rescued. It is really inconvenient for you to come in. Let's all go in. Why don't we wait outside first?" Several people looked at each other, and wanted to break in even more agitatedly. "I am the child's uncle, why don't you let me in? It must be because you are doing something inside that you dare not let us know." Xiaobao directly turned his head and told the guards, "Go and invite the village chief, stop people and don't let them come in." The guards brought the village head here from a farmer's house. The village head had a bitter face, and he complained softly, "Why do you bother with these things?" The waiter was angry, "This is a matter of human life. If we don't care, wouldn't the little girl be buried alive as a dead person? I heard that the village cemetery is not far outside the village. Isn't the village chief afraid of having nightmares at night?" The village chief shuddered and shouted, "I dare not say that, I did not do anything to offend her." The guard snorted coldly, that little girl was suffocated by someone covering her nose and mouth. As the head of a village, you let this matter go. Do you think you are responsible? The village chief didn't dare to argue anymore, followed the guards home, and saw his house being smashed by Zhang Erju and others. His heart got angry, his head became hot, he took off his shoes and ran over to beat them on the head, shouting said, "What are you calling, what are you calling, don't you see that the nobles are saving people? Don't shout like you feel sorry for Niu Niu, tell you, if she dies, none of you will be able to escape suspicion." Village chief, Niu Niu died of illness, what does it matter to us, Zhang Erju shouted resolutely. Fart, she runs around the village during the day, what disease will disappear in one night, the village chief shouted, be honest with me, if something really happens, none of you will be able to eat and walk around. There were still murmurs from the crowd. The little bear shouted loudly, the doctor said that the child was suffocated and shocked by covering his mouth and nose with something like a quilt and pillow. This is murder. You have repeatedly prevented us from saving lives? Could it be that you did it? You are talking nonsense. Zhang Erju was a little guilty and did not dare to meet Xiaoxiang's eyes. Xiao Xiang sneered, is it nonsense? The reporter asked the yamen to investigate. Everyone's expressions changed, and the village head hurriedly stepped forward and said, Your Honor, don't dare to bother the adults in the yamen. It's a trivial matter for the parents. We can handle it by ourselves. Don't worry, with me here, this will never happen again. Something. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang looked at each other in surprise, this is murder, how could they not report it to the police? The two of them realized that something was wrong. The villagers were so arrogant before, and the village chief only said that he would teach them a lesson, but he never said that he would report to the officials. Little Bear's face turned red, and when he was about to speak, Xiaobao grabbed him. Xiaobao smiled and said, then we can rest assured, the village chief might as well go in with us to see the child. The village chief also wanted to see how Niu Niu was doing, so he nodded his wish, and gave the villagers a warning look before leaving. Xiaobao also winked at the chief guard. Niu Niu had been saved, and there was blood on her pale face. The woman was holding her hand and weeping. When she saw the three of them coming in, she got up and kowtowed to Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang. Little Xiang hurriedly helped him up, and said, you don't need to be polite. Seeing that he was being ignored, the village head was slightly embarrassed. He stretched his head to look at the little girl on the bed, and asked, how is the child? Xiaobao also looked at Imperial Physician Zhang, who wiped off his sweat and said, the man has been saved, but we will not know if he has any other problems until he wakes up. A child at such a young age is very likely to become a fool if he suffocates. Physician Zhang glanced at the woman who had finally calmed down, but did not say this. Xiaobao sighed, and said, then let's stay for 2 more days and let the doctor take a good look at her. Village chief, please forgive me for disturbing you. Although the village head wanted to send the man away immediately, he had no choice but to force a smile to comply. Just as the village chief was about to suggest taking the child and the woman to another place so that the nobles could rest, there was another noise outside. He looked at the 2 young masters apologetically and had to go out to deal with it. After Xiaobao and the others left, he looked at the woman who was holding her daughter in a daze and weeping, and said softly, I don't know what to call my aunt. The woman turned her head and took a look at Xiaobao, as if she recognized him as a benefactor. She said tearfully, the woman's maiden name is Zhao. Aunt Zhao. Xiaobao glanced at the little girl on the bed, and said in a low voice, you should have heard what we said outside just now. The child was deliberately murdered. If you go back, can you guarantee her safety? Mrs. Zhao shuddered, knelt on the ground and said, I beg your benefactor to save me. Xiao Xiang wanted to help her, so Xiaobao stopped him, shook his head slightly to Mrs. Zhao and said, we will leave here soon, we can save her for a while, but we can't save her forever. Okay, I just wonder why someone would kill her for such a young child. Her grandma and her second uncle did it, Zhao said with a ferocious face, gritted his teeth. It must be them, blame me, if only I could keep her by my side all the time. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang's eyes widened, they didn't expect that this would be done by their relatives. Why did they do this? Mrs. Zhao cried, my husband passed away and left some savings, plus 20 acres of Yanjai land, but we only have one girl and one daughter. My mother-in-law is worried that no one will inherit my husband's blood, so she wants to adopt him. I don't allow adoption either, I just want to wait for Niuniu to adopt another child when she is about to get married. They can't help it, this is. Zhao's heart was full of sadness and hatred, and said, tonight my mother-in-law cried out that her heart hurts, and she insisted that I serve her in her room. She woke up with a start when I got up at night and drank a glass of water, and she refused to sleep no matter what. It didn't look uncomfortable, I was suspicious, and I slipped out under the pretext of going to the toilet as soon as I lay down. I saw someone coming out of my room, and when I ran back to see, Niuniu was lying under the quilt, her face was blue. I touched it, but there was no breath at all. My mother-in-law said that the child died of illness. Let me express my condolences, but Niuniu has always been in good health. She ate a bowl at dinner. How could she die of illness? Mrs. Zhao cried, covering her face. I knew it was because of the money, I just handed over early, why should my Niuniu suffer this? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1168. The room was very quiet for a while. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang have lived in the care of love since they were young. Although they have faced conspiracies and tricks because of their status, those people are not their relatives, so they will not be sad about it. People will kill their relatives for 20 acres of land and more than 30 taels of silver. The only sound in the room was Zhao's weeping. Xiaobao didn't know how to comfort her, but Xiaoxiang suppressed his voice and said angrily, then go to the police to arrest them and send them all to prison. Mrs. Zhao shook her head again and again, no, if you report to the government, the clan will definitely hate our mother and daughter, and we will not be able to survive in the village. Little Treasure felt a pain in his chest, knowing that what she said was right, if you bear it this time, they will definitely attack again. Next time, will she still have such good luck to escape? Zhao's body froze, unable to speak. She made up her mind early on that if the clan wanted to protect her second uncle, she would risk her life to avenge her daughter, but now that her daughter is still alive, there is nothing more important than her life. Xiaobao grabbed the little bear who was about to talk, and said, you have one night to think about it, and if you make up your mind the next day, let us know, and I will help if I can. We are just passing by, and we can't be in the same place. Stay too long. Mrs. Zhao stared blankly at the sleeping daughter on the bed. Xiaoxiang followed Xiaobao back to the room, and said angrily, why do you stop me, killing people and paying for their lives? If everyone let the criminals for various reasons, then what's the use of asking me to follow the law? Why don't I know? However, the power of the clan is greater than the law, and it has been the case in all dynasties. Even if she sues her mother-in-law and second uncle to the Yamen now, she will not be accepted by the clan afterwards, and she will not be able to survive in this village. Xiaobao said in a deep voice, the law is to restrain people's behavior, so that the wronged people can be avenged, and then live a better life, but now she can't live well by following the law. Is this a fault of the law? Of course it's not the fault of the law, Xiaobao sighed, it's the fault of the clan's power over the law. Niu is not dead, so the people will not sue the officials and will not investigate. Even if Niu died, the Zhang clan and the people in this village deliberately concealed it. As long as the Zhao family is detained, the Yamen will have no way of knowing about it, and her death will not be over. Let it go. What's more, it was her own grandmother and second uncle who wanted to kill her. Xiao Bao frowned and said, actually, the power of the clan has been weakened compared to the Jin and Tang dynasties, but it is still not enough. We can't be radical, otherwise it will only backfire. Little Xiong scratched his head and said, don't worry about the relationship between the clan and the imperial court, let's think about how to solve this matter. If we really want to let it go, maybe we go ahead and they die behind. This is 2 lives. Xiaobao lowered his eyes, knocked on the table and said, it's actually very simple. Mrs. Zhao can take her daughter and leave here to work as a servant in the county town, or find other jobs to support herself and her daughter, plus the money left by Zhang Dazu savings, it is not difficult to live. Then I went to the Yamen to report to the officials and arrested her mother-in-law and second uncle. The attempted murder was sentenced according to the law of the dynasty. It is to travel 500 miles and become a slave. This is the worst policy. What about the best policy? The best strategy is to persuade Zhang's family to voluntarily send her mother-in-law and Zhang Erzhu to the government, or agree to let Niu Niu marry, or wait for Niu Niu to grow up and adopt a stepson to inherit the incense. It's impossible, Little Bear said without thinking, since they didn't agree to Mrs. Zhao's request before, it's even more impossible to agree now, unless, Little Bear rolled his eyes and said, unless we reveal our identities and use the power to oppressive. You can suppress people with power for a while, but not forever, Xiaobao said. So we can only do something wrong. Look at Zhao's choice. Xiaobao felt that this was just their idea, and everyone had their own way of living. They thought it was a strategy for the sake of Zhao's mother and daughter, and they might not appreciate it. Mrs. Zhao was thinking about what to do with her, and the members of the Zhang family outside were also discussing what to do with their mother and child. The village chief looked at Zhang's patriarch bitterly and said, look at the chaos in your clan. Once it gets out, our whole village will be looked at strangely. Patriarch Zhang gritted his teeth and said, those people said that Niu was suffocated or suffocated. Dazu Niang clearly said that the child was sick. Obviously determined not to admit it. The village chief gritted his teeth and said, I believe you, but they don't. If you really want to report to the officials, do you think Erzhu and the others can escape? Patriarch Zhang lowered his eyes and said, Niu Niu is the blood of the Zhang family, and her life belongs to the Zhang family. It's not up to a group of outsiders to decide. Dazu is dead, and the Zhao family is still young. I don't think she can keep it. You can find another husband's family for her to marry off. The guards were just curious about what this group of people said together, and when they heard this, their chests were filled with anger. They felt that they were guards in the palace, and they had seen and heard a lot of nasty things. They didn't expect to see such disgusting things in the simple countryside. They were warmly welcomed when they arrived last night. Fearing that they would stay outside in the cold, they gave them the quilts from home to cover them. People still say that country people are simple, but such a simple group of people are now planning to kill a child and marry a poor widow to another widower. The eavesdropping guards glanced at each other, quietly left the roof, and returned to the house to report to the 2 little masters. Xiao Bao looked at them speechlessly. There were so many guards who ran out to eavesdrop tonight. He dared to swear that standing on a high place and looking down, there must be people lying on the roofs of half of the houses in the village. Xiao Bao rubbed his forehead, and said, you go to Zhao Shi, tell her these words, don't report them to me. By the way, where is the second young master? The guard said excitedly, second young master is still on the roof. He has eavesdropped on 2 houses, and now he has gone to another house. Xiao Bao twitched the corner of his mouth and said, it's almost dawn, call them all back, don't let anyone find out. Eldest young master, don't worry, with second young master's skill, no one will find out, the guard said confidently. Xiaobao turned around and left. He only hated that he hadn't mastered his kung fu, so he could only watch people running out to eavesdrop. In the room, Mrs. Zhao covered her face and wept after listening to the guard's words, and inadvertently looked up to see the sympathy in the guard's eyes. Pity. Is she going to live her whole life with such eyes? No, no, if these people leave, she may really be forced to marry by her husband's family. At that time, every day will not work, and the earth will not work. The daughter stays alone in Zhang's house. Even if she does not die, she will not be able to live well. That being the case, it would be better if the fish die and the net is broken. Even if their mother and daughter go to the underworld, they can still meet with their husbands. Zhao wiped away her tears and rushed out, so fast that the guards didn't even stop her. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1169. Even if they sold themselves as slaves, Zhao Shi didn't want to stay here anymore, so she begged Xiaobao to take them out of the village. The little bear ran in covered in dew, looked at Xiaobao, and Xiaobao nodded and said, "Don't worry, Aunt Zhao, we are going to the county town this time, and I would like to take you all the way, and I will call someone to report to the official. You go back and pack your luggage, we will leave tomorrow." Little Xiang walked around and said, "They have bad thoughts, I'm afraid it's not good to let them know, it's better to act quietly before the official sent." Mrs. Zhao kowtowed and said, "Thank you two young gentlemen, the women know that they must keep it secret, and they will definitely not reveal their words until the official messenger arrives. Otherwise, the whole village might be surrounded by them." After the three of them finished planning, Xiaobao told Mrs. Zhao a few words before opening the door and going out. At this time the morning glow had risen, the sky was dyed red, and the cold and fresh air poured into his chest. Xiaobao felt that the gloom that had been suppressed all night had finally dissipated. The village had quickly brought Patriarch Zhang to come to ask for someone. Xiaobao didn't stop them from seeing Zhao's mother and daughter, but said worriedly, "Niu Niu hasn't woken up yet, the doctor said it's not suitable to move at this time, and she needs to be injected with medicine in a while. Why don't you stay here until she wakes up?" No mention was made of the reason why Niu Niu was suffocating. The village chief heaved a sigh of relief, quickly responded, and then asked him the time to leave in a circumstantial way. Xiaobao said embarrassedly, "I didn't sleep last night, so I plan to disturb you for another day, and leave tomorrow. Please forgive me for disturbing you." The head guard hurriedly took out a 5 taels of silver and stuffed it into the village chief's hand, and said with a smile, "This is our living allowance, please accept it, and we have to trouble you for our 3 meals a day." The eyes of the village head were straightened. The best room in the best inn in the county town cost only 80 wen a day, and 20 wen a catty of pork belly. Even if their family ate a catty of meat every day, it was only 600 wen. God gave them 5 taels of silver. Holding the silver, the village head bowed his head and said, "You just stay here, tell us if you have any orders, and we will do it for you." Patriarch Zhang's eyes kept looking at the silver, and he was not in the mood to persuade Mrs. Zhao to go back. Zhang's mother and Zhang Erzhi's family saw that the patriarch hadn't brought Mrs. Zhao back, their faces changed immediately, and they hurriedly asked, "Those foreigners are not willing to let them go." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Patriarch Zhang glared at them, took a sip of water and said, "They will leave tomorrow. I think they don't really want to care about this matter, as long as they save people. The village chief means there is no need to offend them at this time. Let Zhao Shi and Niu stay with them for a day first." Mother Zhang muttered, "That's my daughter-in-law, what's the matter with her staying among a group of men? Send Niu back. Do you have the money to hire a doctor to buy medicine for her?" Patriarch Zhang said angrily, "Let me put it aside first, Mrs. Zhao can remarry, but Niu must live. Let me know that you are going to kill Niu, I will open the ancestral hall and sink you all." Mother Zhang's complexion changed, and she dared not speak any more. Patriarch Zhang snorted coldly, got up and was about to leave, stopped at the door, and asked, "Didn't Dazu leave more than 20 taels of silver? Come out as soon as possible, we can't let Mrs. Zhao take my Zhang family's industry remarriage." Zhang's mother nodded repeatedly, and said, "It's good that Mrs. Zhao is not at home, I will take Zhu and them to look for them." Mrs. Zhao was hesitating whether to go home and pack up her things, when a guard came back and said, "The Zhang family is looking around for some money. Sister-in-law Zhao, I think you should not go back, otherwise you will never come back." Little Xiang raised his eyebrows and looked at Mrs. Zhao, "Where did you hide the money? I'll get it for you." Mrs. Zhao said with a pale face, "Miss Angong didn't hide at home, he hid in the field. The money was hidden by Zhang Dazu, and Zhao has never used it since it was hidden, so now there are only a few hundred copper coins scattered in her house, which are the money she earned from selling eggs and insoles, and the 2 coins that Zhang Dazu gave her before. A silver hairpin, gold bracelet, and gold earrings are still worn on her body, so it seems that there are really not many valuable things in her house." Xiao Xiang heard about several family members last night, and has already figured out the Zhang family's affairs. Speaking of which, the Zhao family is quite pitiful. She was married to Zhang Dazu when she was 13 years old, but Zhang Dazu was arrested and sent to serve in the military as soon as she married. Because she had no children, she was always used as an animal in the Zhang family. But Zhang Dazu was lucky, Qi Ziyuan rebelled within 2 years after joining the army, De Zhou became De Qi, and the army he was in surrendered without even fighting the Qi army. Later, he was dragged to the battlefield to fight with Zixia, and he was still Qi Heiran's soldier. Although he was one of thousands, he was also his father's subordinate. The mother and daughter have a good impression. Zhang Dazu made a small contribution in the war against Zixia, and he was not promoted enough, but he was able to get some rewards. In addition, after the establishment of Daki, he could also get the military salary, and it would be a lot of money if he saved it. Money. Because it was a troubled time, his people had already gone into exile and were not in the original village. He found his mother and wife only in the 3rd year of Taikang. So he was lucky. Many relatives were separated because of the troubled times, and the living ones might not be able to find each other in their entire lives, but it took him less than 3 years to find someone. Later, Qi Ziyuan issued an edict to exempt some people from military service. As long as they reached the age limit or were wounded and voluntarily retired, they could get a certain amount of money to leave the army. For good people, Yanjiashan is the same as good people, each person can get 20 acres, and the local government has preferential treatment for veterans and wounded soldiers who have retired and returned home, and they can exempt from taxes for 5 years or even longer as appropriate. Zhang Dazu's reward, military salary, and the compensation he received after retiring were nearly 100 taels, plus the spoils he got on the battlefield. When he returned home he had more than 120 taels of silver. Because he was away from home for a long time, Zhang Dazu felt very guilty towards his mother. As soon as he got home, he took out money to build a big brick house for the family. Fortunately, he was not stupid, and the money was always in his hands, even if it was Zhao. At the beginning, I didn't know how much money he had in his hand. The son who had been away from home for nearly 6 years came back, but Zhang's mother no longer had much affection for him. No matter how warm it was, the warmth between mother and son and brothers could not be maintained when Zhang Dazu could no longer provide money, and Zhang Dazu, I also know that Zhao's life has not been good these years. After all, he was his wife who had been guarding him for 6 years, and Zhao soon gave birth to his first child, so Zhang Dazu was very partial to his wife. According to the combined analysis of all kinds of information overheard by Xiao Xiang, the complete outbreak of the conflict between the two families started when Zhang's mother accidentally lost one of Zhao's sons. That was the son Zhang Dazu had been looking forward to for many years, but his mother died accidentally, so the two families separated completely. Zhang Dazu was very talkative in the family, not only willing to give away half of the house, but also paid 20 taels of silver in one lump sum as alimony and severed ties with Zhang. According to the analysis of the villagers and the Zhang family, Zhang Dazu should still have more than 20 taels of silver in his hand, because when he came back that year, he said he had 100 taels of silver. After building the house and spending so many years, he gave another 20 taels of silver. He only has so many at most. But no one has seen so much money. Farming the land all year round, after paying taxes and excluding daily expenses, saving 3 or 4 taels of silver is the best. This is because the Daki government is well organized, the corvée is light and the tax is light, and the grain is high yielding. In Dazhu, it is not bad if people cannot starve to death. Therefore, Zhang's mother, Zhang Erju and others stared at the silver that Zhang Dazu secretly hid, their eyes turned green. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1170. The two guards took Mrs. Zhao to dig for silver under the moonlight, and Xiao Xiong followed enthusiastically. He was very interested in the way of folks hiding silver. Perhaps seeing Zhang's mother's eccentricity and his younger brother's shamelessness, Zhang Dazu didn't dare to hide the money at home, but hid it in his field. The 20 mu of Yanjai land allocated to him by the imperial court was divided into several pieces, one of which had a pool of rocks in it, only the size of a table, and there were hard stones under the rocks. Because he came back late, all the nearby good land had been allocated, so this land was allocated to him. Zhang Dazu hid the money here, and he told Mrs. Zhao before his death. Mrs. Zhao has already made up her mind that the money will not be used until her daughter gets married, so she has never been here to touch money in the past 2 years. If you really want to ask how much money she has, she really doesn't know. After the bundle was pulled out, she faintly felt that the weight was not right. When she opened it, she found that there were more than 10 ingots of silver inside. Zhao was so startled that her hands and feet were cold. So many. The guard turned upside down and said, silver is 5 taels apiece, so that's just over 50 taels. The little bear said, this number is correct. People in the village say that he brought back 100 taels, but that's all counted. He should have gotten some spoils in battle, plus the silver he saved from hard work over the years, it's about the same amount. That's the number. Zhao's heart was relieved, she held the money and wept, she didn't expect her husband to think so much about their mother and daughter. The guard waited for her to wipe away her tears before taking her back quietly. Little Xiong reminded him, you should rest well tonight, and the people in the yamen should be here tomorrow morning. Zhao nodded. This village is too far away from the county government, and it takes a whole day to walk. The guards have horses to go back and forth, but the county government servants don't have horses, so they can only get out on 2 legs. So they traveled through mountains and rivers, and finally appeared at the gate of the village at dawn. As soon as the official post appeared, the village immediately became extremely lively. The village chief greeted him with a grey face, and when he finished he gave the guards a look. He knew that these people must have helped Mrs. Zhao, otherwise Mrs. Zhao, a woman who has been taking care of her daughter in the house, how could she have time to go to the village? Report. The guards grinned happily at the village head with their big white teeth. The officials rushed all night, and their tempers were not very good. As soon as they came up, they yelled, who is the suffering Master Zhao? Just as the village chief was about to speak, a guard led Mrs. Zhao out and shouted, the sufferer is here, my lords, the victim, Nayuniu, is in the room, she is still unconscious. In fact, Nayuniu woke up twice in the middle, but she is indeed asleep now. The officials immediately bypassed the village chief and ran to the house to see the sufferer, and after confirming that the other party had indeed suffered a grievance, they asked where the perpetrator was. The village chief couldn't intervene at all, he could only watch helplessly as both Zhang Erju and Zhang's mother were confessed. Seeing that the officials were all looking at him, the village chief's lips moved, and he could only slowly lead them the way, but before he left the room, 2 guards dropped 2 of them from the sky. No need to go, the 2 of them if they want to escape, we will bring them here on their behalf. The leading official twitched his forehead, but he knew that the other party was not an ordinary person, so he didn't pursue it further, but lowered his head to look at the 2 lying on the ground. Zhang's mother and Zhang Erja trembled. Zhang Erja shook his lips and said, I was wronged. Zhang's mother shouted nervously, she is my granddaughter, her life is mine, so what if I suffocate her to death? How many babies are drowned as soon as they are born? Why don't you catch those people? The official's face turned cold, and he shouted, do you think that drowning a girl is not a crime? If you are caught, you can also be sentenced to exile. What can such a cunning and perverted person have to say? Come, lock them up. The officials hurriedly rushed up to put the shackles on the people. The surrounding villagers were not as aggressive as yesterday, and they were obviously very afraid of the officials. Standing on it, Xiao Bao commented, although these officials acted domineeringly, they were still conscientious. They answered all the questions that should be asked just now. Little Xiong said indifferently, if you're not overbearing, I'm afraid you won't be able to suppress these villagers. Xiaobao sighed, it would be great if the officials were gentle and the common people were polite. Not only do we have to eat enough, wear warm clothes, and live in tile-roofed houses, but we also need to be able to read and write. Xiao Xiong calculated the expenses in his mind, and sighed, our Daki is now considered a prosperous country and a peaceful country, but I don't know how many years it will take to reach this point. Xiao Bao murmured, one day it will come true. After the official took the people, he looked at the 2 of them, hesitating whether to ask their identities. Xiao Bao smiled, stepped forward to salute, and said, Qi Chen, a student in Jiangnan, that is my younger brother Qi Jin. We are going to study abroad at the order of our parents. Who knows that such a thing happened to us by chance? Will the officials leave immediately? The official almost nodded, it's a long way to go, we start now, and we can only reach the county at night. It just so happens that I'm leaving too, why don't we go on the road together? Xiao Bao said with a smile, we can take care of each other. The eyes of the officials turned to the carriage parked in the yard and the 20 or so horses not far away. It would be great if they could pass. It would be better to have a car than to walk. The officials agreed happily. The guards immediately went to the kitchen to bring out meals to share together, and then set out on the road after they were full. The meal this morning was a bit difficult to explain in words. There was no other way. The village head was annoyed and refused to cook for them anymore, so the guards had to do it themselves. Qi Ziyuan and Qi Heiran even thought of the doctor for their son, but they didn't think of the cook for them, so they had a breakfast cooked by the guards, and decided that it would be better to pick a guard who can cook next time when they come out to practice. Everyone eats and drinks enough, and immediately loads the car. Niu Niu was carried out and put into the carriage under the watchful eyes of the whole village. Patriarch Zhang couldn't hide at this time, and ran out to stop her. Mr. Zhao, where are you taking Niu Niu? She is the blood of our Zhang family. Mrs. Zhao was about to leave. At this time, she didn't care whether she would offend him, so she stared at him with hatred and said, does the village chief even know that Niu Niu is the blood of the Zhang family? Well, he will help the orphans and widows in the clan whenever they are in trouble, that is, in the village. Who of you has not received his favor? As a result, you will kill his daughter in less than 2 years after he died, and you will not be afraid at night have a nightmare. Patriarch Zhang looked ugly, what nonsense are you talking about? It's your mother-in-law and her second uncle who are going to kill Niu Niu. But you protected them, and you saw that they were going to kill Niu Niu. What's the difference from what you killed? Zhao yelled frantically, look up, Dazu is looking at you from the sky. The villagers felt a gust of cold wind blowing on them. Mrs. Zhao laughed and said, It's okay if you haven't been favored by my family's Dazu. If anyone repays kindness with revenge, Dazu will remember it, and no one can escape. Xiaobao winked at the guards and asked them to take her into the carriage, then saluted the villagers. I know you all blame me for reporting the case to MRS Zhao, but this is a matter of life and death. I don't think you have done anything for Zhao. What's more, Xiaobao fixed a glance at everyone. What's more, Zhang Erju and Zhang's mother dared to kill their relatives just for a little profit, so how do you know that they won't kill other people for profit in the future? Keep it. Such a cancer is in the village, can you sleep peacefully? The faces of the villagers changed, and the area around Zhang Erju's family was instantly emptied, and no one dared to approach them. The faces of Zhang Erju's family were pale, and they stared at Xiaobao with hatred. Xiaobao didn't care about it at all. He didn't believe that Zhang Erju's family didn't know about killing Niuniu. It's just that he didn't want to involve too much, so he only arrested the main culprit, but it didn't mean he let them go. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1171. When Zhang's mother saw MRS Zhao, she immediately cursed. The officials were impatient, and directly pulled a handful of dry grass from the side of the road and stuffed it into her mouth. Even Zhang Erju was implicated in her stuffing it. The two groaned and looked at MRS Zhao with hatred, but MRS Zhao looked at them with eyes full of hatred. Xiao Xiang, who originally wanted to put them in the same car, immediately changed his mind, and tied Zhang's mother and Zhang Erju to the back of the car with a rope, saying, "You are so energetic, let's go for a while." MRS Zhao climbed into the carriage and hugged her daughter gently, feeling bewildered and looking forward to it. She didn't know if she could live a good life in the future, but as long as her daughter was still alive, there was still hope. And the officials also squeezed onto the horses of the guards and started heading towards the county seat. Because of the horses, the time was shortened by more than half, and they arrived at the county seat before noon. The county seat of Chiu County is not big, it's just a lower county, and it's busy farming season, so there are not many people in the county town at noon, and the group is composed of carriages and horses. Caught everyone's eyes. The officials were going to the yamen, so they got off their horses when they entered the gate of the city. The leader of the officials clenched their fists and asked, should the two young masters stay in Chiu County, or continue on their way? If you are resting in Chiu County, why not let us lead you there, find an inn to stay. The key is that the other party is either rich or expensive at first glance. The county magistrate may want to make friends, and it will be easy to find someone when the time comes. Qi Wenchen glanced at the carriage and said with a smile, we are afraid that we will stay here for 2 days, and we will leave after we understand the case. The officials felt relieved, and immediately allocated a person to lead them the way. It would be more convenient for them to have the officials lead the way. Qi Wenchen didn't refuse, and accepted their offer. The officials had already tore Zhang's mother and Zhang Erju off the shaft of the car, bid farewell to everyone, and escorted them to the county government. The chief guard and the official who led the way went first and packed up the entire inn. At this time, the farming season is busy. We are lucky. There are no guests staying in the entire inn, so I decided to take care of everything. In fact, there are not many rooms under all packages, just 1 room per person. Qi Wenchen nodded in response, looked at the cramped MRS Zhao, and said with a smile, Aunt Zhao and Niuniu go back to the house to rest first. Since we have arrived in the county, let's take a good look around here, and discuss other things slowly. MRS Zhao nodded in response, and carried her daughter back to the house. Qi Wenjin let out a breath, looked at the street outside and said excitedly, let's go out and have fun too. Don't worry, go to eat and rest first, I'm afraid there will be a visitor in the afternoon. If I go with you to play, I'm afraid I will miss the distinguished guest. The distinguished guest that Xiaobao mentioned was Huang Jie, the magistrate of Chiu County. After the case happened, he got the resume of the magistrate of Chiu County. Huang Jie was a jinchi in the third year of Taikang. He was the first jinchi after the founding of Enk. The Ministry of Officials let him succeed the county magistrate, and it has been 6 years since then. Qi Wenchen read the comments given to him by the official department. He was not astute, but diligent, and the annual evaluation by the official department was either excellent or above average. He has studied it carefully. He is very talented in farming, and he can complete the task of persuading farmers and mulberry teachers issued by the court every year, but his shortcoming is criminal prosecution. There may not be a single murder case in 3 years, but there must be many other cases of robbery, and there are also fights over water and land. A county magistrate has a lot to deal with. However, Huang Jie's handling of these matters was always insufficient. When he was the county captain, he was in charge of this aspect. Because of his lack of ability, he took the initiative to exchange responsibilities with the county magistrate, and let the county magistrate take care of public security. The county lieutenant was in charge of farming. At that time, the county magistrate had been promoted to county magistrate. Although he assisted him in handling all kinds of criminal proceedings in the county, the official department didn't think it was his skill, so points were deducted every year because of this matter, barely getting an excellent grade. Or because Nong Sang under his rule did a good job. However, Xiaobao felt that the officials were too harsh. Huang Jie was not good at criminal procedures, so he could not let him take care of these matters. Besides, he knew how to use people well, and did not delay the case. He could get an excellent evaluation based on this alone. Huang Jie had been an official for 11 years, not to mention tactful, at least he was not stupefied. Yesterday a guard came to report the crime on a tall horse, and he knew that the people living in that small village were probably not ordinary people. How can ordinary people use such a horse? Therefore, after seeing Zhang's mother and Zhang Erju, Huang Jie sent people to jail pending trial, and brought the county captain to chat with the legendary distinguished guest first. County Captain Qin's eyes were bright, and when he saw Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang coming down the stairs, he said in a low voice, "My lord, I'm afraid the identities of these two people are not simple. He has this aura at such a young age, the older one has a gentle temperament but dignified, the younger one has a hint of power in his eyes, he has suppressed bandits, one can tell at a glance that this person has seen blood on his hands, and his aura is restrained. I am afraid there was a lot of blood on his hands. At such a young age, if he didn't have a sense of righteousness in him, he might think that the other party is a gangster." County Magistrate Huang was not blind either, and naturally sensed that their aura was being suppressed, so he quickly smiled and stepped forward to meet as peers. Xiaoxiang was a little bored, and didn't quite understand why the prince's brother wanted to make friends with them. They had passed through many counties before, but the prince's brother never met officials. Qi Wenchen's purpose is very simple, one is to inquire about the case, and knowing that there are all witnesses and material evidence, Zhang's mother and Zhang Erju's judgment will come down within 1 month, and before that, neither of them will be released. The second is to ask about the employment situation in Chiu County. I don't know what jobs people like Zhao's mother and daughter can find in the county. If the other party can't settle down, they won't feel at ease when they leave. The third is to ask about the clan's situation in the county. After seeing Zhao's mother and daughter, Xiaobao had some thoughts in his heart, but because his thoughts were not mature, he couldn't explain it clearly, so he could only do an investigation first. For the first two matters, County Captain Qin can give an accurate answer. Although Chiu County is a lower county, it is quite easy to find a job. The easiest thing is that Mrs. Zhao can do the laundry, although it is much more difficult, it's impossible, but there will always be no problem with food and clothing. If not, you can also work as a domestic helper in a rich family, and you can live well with the monthly money. County Captain Chin said that if Ms. Zhao worked hard, he would be willing to help her find a good job. Xiaobao hurriedly answered for the other party happily. As for the last question, Xiaobao naturally didn't ask directly, but because of the matter of Zhao's mother and daughter, he lamented the dominance of Zhang's clan and the embarrassment of the Yamen. Speaking of this, County Magistrate Huang has not yet spoken, but County Captain Chin and Qi Wenchen have become confidants. He has always been in charge of the security of the county, and he has to contact all kinds of people, no matter if they are poor, rich or landlords, they all have families, and the intricate human relationships in it can annoy him to death. Among other things, they wanted to catch a thief. Seeing that he was about to be caught, he ran into an alley, because the same clan, the people of the same clan helped to cover them, even if they knew that he was in the alley, they would not be able to catch him. Really annoyed? The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1172. The county magistrate Huang also said, every year, due to the competition for water and land, there are often fights between clans, but at first it was just a personal dispute, then it became a family dispute, and then developed into a clan dispute. The family is for the protection of the tribe, and the tribe strengthens the family. This is a complementary thing, but the family is powerful and constantly steps on the line of the law. We are neither light nor heavy. Xiaobao asked, is there no way to benefit? The power of the family has been greatly weakened after the Sui and Tang dynasties. After the Five Kingdoms rebellion, Emperor Sejong ruled the world and tried his best to suppress the family. Even the power of the clan is also weakening. This should be regarded as the limit, Huang County Magistrate said. I really can't think of any safe way for the imperial court to weaken the power of the clan. Qin Xianwei also nodded, and said, the family is nothing to fear now, and today is kind, can't you just use troops to weaken the family like Emperor Sejong? Xiaobao said solemnly, the family has not committed any crimes, so the emperor will naturally not do such unrighteous things. County Magistrate Huang and County Captain Qin also sighed. Little Xiong looked at this and then at that, puzzled and said, the clan is powerful, so why don't we let them be so powerful? Xiaobao rolled his eyes at his younger brother, aren't we just thinking about how to weaken the power of the clan? That's not easy, just emphasize the rights of the individual, and don't let them pay so much for the family. Xiao Xiong said indifferently, isn't the reason why the clan is so powerful because it constantly squeezes individuals and makes them give up their ego for the family? Does the family pay? If they can be persuaded to think more about themselves, and no individual pays regardless of personal interests, how can the clan grow? The other three people on the table were stunned and stared at Little Bear dumbfounded. Little Xiong stared at them for a moment, then asked hesitantly, did I say something wrong? No, you're right, Xiaobao smiled happily, this is a good idea. County Magistrate Huang and County Captain Qin glanced at each other, feeling turbulent in their hearts. Such an approach is very sinister, and, this, emphasizing selfishness, will make people selfish. Xiaobao smiled and said, emphasis on the clan is also selfish. If you really want to fear that the people will become selfish, it is better to emphasize the family and the country, so that everyone can have both. County Magistrate Huang and County Captain Qin were stunned. They felt that they were too old to keep up with the pace of young people. Xiaobao waited until the County Magistrate Huang and the County Captain Qin had left before he went to pat the little bear on the head. You brat, why didn't you say something sooner if you had a good idea? Little bear felt wronged, didn't I just think of it? I'll tell you as soon as I think of it. Xiaobao's eyes lit up, we have to figure this out slowly. We directly emphasize that the world may not pay the bill, they have to think for themselves, and if you want people to think, you have to ask first. Little bear, now I finally know why my fourth aunt wants to. There's a newspaper, and with that newspaper, we don't know how much we can do. Little Bear scratched his head in confusion, and asked, "What are you going to do?" Xiaobao laughed and said, "Let's publish the experiences we have seen along the way in the Times. Doesn't that newspaper have a page dedicated to all kinds of strange events and stories? Let's write a letter and get that page from my fourth aunt." He thought of these things from the matter of Zhao's mother and son. Even if those people couldn't think of these things, he could raise the issue and plant seeds for them first. One day these seeds will germinate and grow into big trees. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang wrote to Mu Yangling that night, and not only asked her for a layout, but also sent the first manuscript, which was about the Zhao mother and daughter. When Mu Yangling received the letter, she was amazed at the sensitivity of the two children. In the time she lived in her previous life, after wars and reforms, the power of the family had weakened a lot, at least it was difficult to override the law. But now Daki laws are important, but the power of the family is everywhere. It would be great if the two children could really further weaken the power of the family. Mu Yangling blurred out the places and people's names in the manuscript, and then sent it out. "Let the Times send it out, and I will leave a space for the strange things and weird stories in the future for Xiaobao and the others to use." I found another strange story and sent it to them. The writing skills of the two children are really not flattering, so let's learn how other people write these strange stories. It was already several days after Xiaobao and the others bought the Times with his article published in the local area, and they had already left Chiu County. At this time, they were still staying in Chiu County. Niu has come to her senses. She respectfully kowtows to Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang. Qin Xianwei found a helper for Mrs. Zhao from a wealthy household in the county. She has about 300 yuan a month. The key is that the master's family covers 3 meals a day, so her expenses are not big. Mrs. Zhao rented a place to live in the county, and hid all the money Zhang Dazu left her, planning to leave it to Niu as a dowry. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang stayed in the county for 2 days. Seeing that the Zhao family had stabilized, and Zhang's mother and Zhang Erzhu had no possibility of leaving, the official who went to the small village promised to take more care of Zhao's mother and daughter, and the two were satisfied leave. The beautiful scenery that the two enjoyed during the journey and the strange things and people they saw were all written and published in the Times. There were injustices, and there were also admirable good people and good deeds. At the beginning, not many people paid attention to this page in the Times. As more and more things were published, this page became the most popular page besides the political page, and many people began to look forward to this page. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang published an article in the Times in the name of students studying abroad. People who read it can guess that the other party may be a student in their teens. This makes the students studying abroad moved. Since these two students studying abroad, if they can publish what they have learned during their study tour in the Times, can they also? Isn't what the literate I pursue is to become famous in one fell swoop? However, in the ancient times with inconvenient transportation, it is very difficult to do this unless you have great talent or great moral character. And how many people in this world have great talent and great moral character? The writing of these two travel notes published in the Times is worse than theirs. If they can, why can't we? They have also seen beautiful scenery, experienced many injustices, and also seen all kinds of strange things. No matter in terms of experience or ability, they are not weaker than these two teenagers. The Times is now available in every county, and with just one article, they will truly become famous in one fell swoop. Many scholars became excited, and some people began to write a tentative travel note and deliver it to Prince Rong's mansion. Zhu Liang, who was sorting out the greeting posts, was speechless when he saw this article, but he still sent it to Mu Yangling in the backyard.